Well, I introduced Tim. Tim Becker is the Eddy County agent at New Rockford. He's a North Dakota native, actually from Eddy County, and he has a bachelor's degree from NDSU. He started working for Extension in 1991, and then came to Eddy County in 1998. So Tim has a lot of experience. I enjoy working with him. He also is involved with farming with his brother, and so it's nice to have contact with him on a regular basis to find out what some of the issues are out there and put practical educational programs together, or at least we try.
Again, like Greg said, I want to talk about Soybean Cyst Nematode. Anybody in here have that? Big problem down in the valley? Well, getting darn close. Just a little bit about soybean cyst. It is the biggest, #1 soybean disease in the United States. Yield reductions of 15 to 30% before above ground symptoms are present. And let that soak in a little bit. Yield reductions of 15 to 30% before above ground symptoms are present. You might not know, you might have, you don't know. We're going to talk about that a little bit more as we go on here. But again, it is something that we're looking for right now, and we're going to talk some more about that. The next bullet, once in the soil, you will have it forever. There's no getting rid of it. So soybean cysts are a little different. Parasite is like normal parasites, you see it out in the field, you go out, diagnose it, and treat it. This is one that you may have for quite a while before you know you have it. So it's a slow killer. But we can manage this one if you look for it. And I would suspect that nobody in here has looked for it, unless you're an agent that probably has gone out, like Scott, and taken soil samples. Key here is finding it early so that we can manage it. And the biggest key is keeping egg levels low. So this is basically the slide I'm starting with. I'm going to end with this slide again. So a little bit about soybean cyst. Here's the cyst. Basically the cyst is the female body. Once the females die, the cyst is where the eggs are at. You think of cysts like a piece of leather. Ever seen a piece of leather out in the field? That might be for 30, 40 years. I mean, it just, nothing happens to it. So it's like almost like an old piece of leather around an egg body. And those eggs can live inside that cyst for probably 10 plus years. Finding it and diagnosing is so important and working with resistant varieties. It's a tough structure, it's long-term survival, and again, it moves with soil, which plays into what we're going to talk about here. So where would you think you'd look for this one? Right field entrance, right? Would be one place to look. You know, with water, would be maybe where water ponds or where water runs through a field. Wind can deposit it, birds, boots, four-wheelers when you move from one field to another, or drive through something right with a tree line. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but yeah, tree line catches the wind. So here we have the eggs will hatch out of the cyst when it gets a signal from the soybean plant or a susceptible host. The eggs will hatch, and like Sam Hunkel has told us in training, he says, you know, half are male, half are female. There might be anywhere from 100 to 500 eggs in a cyst. So half are male, half are female. And he said that the females will look for the plant, the root system to go into. The males basically don't lay eggs, so they're like called dormant as a freshman, is kind of how we put it. They're looking, there's such genetic diversity with this because the males are looking to mate with all the females. So there's a lot of huge genetic diversity, which plays a factor when we look at resistant varieties. But they have the ability to adapt and change. We'll talk about that a little bit more. From the egg to the breeding, to run this cycle is about 4 weeks. The female going into the plant, laying her eggs, the eggs hatching, fertilizing, going through it about 4 weeks. So your numbers will escalate as the season goes on. So typically in June, you won't find high numbers. They'll get higher into August because we're 3 generations in. So if you think of it like, if there's 100, if there's one egg laying out there and there's 100 females, that 100 females will have 100 eggs, or say 200 eggs, half of them will be females, so you get 100 times 100. So by July, you're looking at 10,000. By the time you get to August, you're looking at 800. So they populate real fast. Here's a picture, and I do have on the front tables, if we got enough time when we get done, I do have samples where we can look at. We want to look at the cysts, but if you look at this picture, there's a cyst. You can't see them with the eye, it's just a little white dot. But when you're looking for them, you're probably going to want a little magnifying glass, so easy to see. Anybody know what this is? Nodules. Okay, so look at the difference in size between the nodule and a soybean root and the cyst. They're very small. And they slough off very easily, so that's real important when you're going out to look for them. So typically you go out and look for these in August. So the impact, why is it such a big deal? Well, they're a parasite. And most parasites that we have they're a nematode, but they're a parasite. Most nematodes are not harmful. They're actually good in the soil, but you have things like heartworm in a dog, which would be a parasitic. These are soybean cyst, and basically they will disrupt the water uptake. They are parasites, so they're sucking out all the nutrients. They're also causing a problem, or causing an infection site, so we can see secondary things coming out of the soybean. SDS, so sudden death syndrome, is probably the next step after this one comes in. So how does it move? Anything that moves soil moves cysts. Okay? And we talked about equipment, wind, water, anything that moves. Scott mentioned a good place to look would be along tree rows or fence lines. It catches the wind as the dirt blows. Okay? But the number one place that I would start looking if you're going to look for them would be on those headlands where your equipment enters the field. That'd probably be the first place to start looking. There's our tractor we bought last year on the farm. But again, equipment, we'll move it. And the wind, I know it's windy in North Dakota, but probably not this windy. Flooding, up and down the valley, and that's probably where we've seen some of them move up. Soybean cyst infections, you notice there's two places. Wherever the soybeans are grown, we have soybean cyst. Okay? Right here is the Appalachians and the Ozark are probably the two areas that we don't see cysts, just because we don't see soybeans grown in those areas. First cysts were found in 1954 in North Carolina. So I want you to watch this map. This is South Dakota. Look at the date here, 1995. Okay, South Dakota is about 10 years ahead of us with this. So watch this map. It was first found in 95. 2000 it was there. 2010. Cyst did not blow up like this because it just was moving. I mean, it was moving. It blew up like this because they started looking for it. Okay? They actively started looking for it when the first cysts were found in the state. Okay? Let's go to North Dakota. 2003 we found it, I think that's Richland County, isn't it? Yeah. 2007, Cass County. 2009, Becker County. In 2009, we better start doing some surveying. The Soybean Council put some money behind this, and they did do some survey. They started surveying some growers, agronomists, and whatnot, and doing some checking on it. By 2010, they found it here. 2011 there. It didn't just go boom because the wind blew it with water. It was there probably already. They just started looking for it. Okay? So back to my original question, do we have it here? Probably. Again, the take-home message is 15 to 30% yield reduction before you see above-ground symptoms. Grower-based sampling began last year. 2013, there were 193 samples submitted. These were bags that probably came out to agents around across the state, and we got them out to some growers that were willing to take samples. Or like Scott, probably, did you go out and take samples?
Yeah, I did, and I just promoted growers to get the bags and go out and do it.
Okay. I think I got one grower to do it for me this year, and I think I took another 6 or 7 samples myself and sent them in. You know, just finding enough time to take the samples. So all agents have sample bags. So 2013, 193 samples, about 30% were positive. 2014, to date, there's been 560 samples sent in. What they found out is about 30% have been positive. In 2015, they have a grant submitted to the North Dakota Soybean Council for up to 2,000 bags that are going to be available for this next year, and I think that's going to be the last year. There'll be the free grower bags after that. I think the Soybean Council will probably pay if you submit bills. But this is your Soybean Council. We're trying to help out with this council. Here's kind of the area where we're finding them. If you look right there, there is a Carrington. Now, as it's been explained to us, when you see a circle with a zero, there's zero. But you might see a circle with a gray in the middle, you're looking at 50 to 200. It may be a pulse positive. because there's a lot of them that look alike, so it may be a false positive. But the other thing to keep in mind is we might have a false positive, but as it's been explained to us, is you can sample right here, and it can be absolutely nothing. You can sample right here, and it might be just hot. So when you're going out and pulling 20 plugs or soil samples in a field, you may or may not find it. It might be there, you just might miss it, unless it's really rapid and hot. Okay? So taking many samples is very important. Mixing them up to get a representative sample of the field. And then we continue to sample. This is this year's and last year's. Yeah. It probably is, because this year's hasn't been added into it. It's just going on right now. Yep. Yeah, it would be last year's. Again, I asked the question, do you have cysts? Have you ever seen this in a field around here? Or in your county? That can be a lot of different things, can it? A lot of different things. If you're seeing this in June, it's probably waterlogged. Or salt or something going on. Because remember, in June our numbers are low. Typically, it takes a little while for those numbers to ramp up into August. If you're seeing this in August and we've got good growing conditions, you probably want to get out and sample. Okay, you can either take a sample and you can send it in. Go out there with a shovel, but be very careful. Because you can look at it, they're easy to find, but you gotta be careful because they'll slough off just like nodules will. If you start looking at a field looking like that, you've probably got problems. There's Iowa. That's more than 30%. They figured in Iowa it takes about $500 million estimated per year in Iowa. How do we manage? Again, keep your egg numbers low. Soil testing and in-season digging. If we keep those numbers low through rotation, soybean on soybean on soybean of a non-resistant variety is just going to blow up on you. We can use resistance. Again, soybean testing and in-season digging. We talked about that a little bit about checking in August. If you don't get it checked in August, then probably wait till after harvest and take a soil sample. Probe the roots. You go after the roots, and you put them in the little soil sample bags and mail them into ag rates or something like that, and they can do counts for you. Again, Scott talked about this. Where to look along the fence lines, field entrance, by the approaches. Previously flooded or low spot areas where there might be water moving. High pH spot. How many of you know your pHs in the field? So they seem to like the higher pH areas if you know where the higher pH soils are at. Or a consistently low yielding area. Then August or later, take the whole plant. If you're going to do it in August, be gentle and bring a magnifying glass. Clean up that rut, maybe a bucket of water to wash them off in. Start pulling on the dirt that's gonna just slop them off. Again, this is what you're looking for on the roots. You're doing the sampling technique, pushing the probe in and after harvest. Again, a 1-inch probe, just a hand soil probe. Any county offices, extension offices have it, some of your agronomists have one, hand probe. Go where the cyst is. Again, shoot for the roots. You're taking a sample. You only need to take about, down just in the root system. You don't need to go down 18 inches.
I think what was recommended is 6 to 8 inches, and I did the probe thing, and sometimes that ground was so hard. I ain't much of a big guy, and I had a tough time. So I used a tiling spade, and it was much easier, the 5-gallon bucket, and dig down and throw it in there and make composite samples. Way easier than that probe for me.
The more samples, the better. Shoot for at least 20 in a field. At least. Again, mix them up. Like Scott said, keep the samples coolish, and get them to lab right away. Resistance pays twice. Okay? The resistant variety pays twice because it'll yield better and it'll keep your egg numbers low. Okay? The other thing to remember about resistance is you need to rotate your resistant varieties. So if you have a variety that is resistant, don't keep using that same variety year after year. You want to rotate the varieties. Look at the yield. This is from North Dakota. There's a susceptible check. And the average resistant. Quite a jump difference. This is a plot with the soybean cyst plot that NDSU put out. I want you to look at two things here. I'm going to go back and forth. Look where the soybeans are at, all right there on him. Where's we got cyst? They were standing in this spot first and went to the area that had cyst. Look at the height difference. If you were looking at that, what would be your first thought looking at those varieties? Do you see, I mean, would cyst be your first thing that would cross your mind? Probably not. Okay? Because you don't see any visible symptoms. It's just shorter. Well, the ground may have been wetter, it might have been mudded in. Could be a lot of things. They're just not growing as well there. That's areas that you would start to suspect, especially if they start turning yellow dogs. There's another problem for our area right here. Susceptible hosts, riotable beans, chickweed, field pennycress, purslane, shepherd's purse, sweet clover, and wild mustard, all susceptible hosts here. So when you throw that dry bean that doesn't have resistance into that rotation with a soybean that is resistant, you might have to blow up right there. And they do affect dry beans. They're not as good a host as the soybean, but it's still problematic. So, anything other than these crops, we need to rotate. The take home here on this slide is keep numbers low, it's easy. Susceptible soybeans, we kept the numbers fairly low by using a resistant soybean in here. But 6 years later, we threw a susceptible soybeans in there and bam, 30,000. Okay? It's hard to get this number down, but once we got them down here, it's easier to keep them down there than it is to bring this number down. So they have a lot of stuff on seed treatments on the news the last few months here. Clariva, you guys heard that one or seen the advertisements on that? There's 4 of them that I know right now in the market. I think there's another one coming to help. Sam Markell at NDSU mentioned to us, these companies do not want to see these used on non-resistant varieties. They want them to be used on resistant varieties. They help, but they're not the answer at this point. Okay? So if you're going to try and use some of the seed treatments, put them on resistant varieties. Soybean cyst is the #1 soybean disease in the United States. Again, yield reductions of 15 to 30% before you even see it in the field. So back to my first question, do you have it? Have you checked? Remember South Dakota, how when they started checking it blew up, North Dakota it blew up? Nobody's really been checking around here. It's probably here. We just haven't looked for it hard enough. And again, once you find it, you're going to have to deal with it. We can manage it, look for it, find it early, and keep ending up levels low.
Is it always on the ruts?
You're going to find the cyst, that's where it lives, is on the ruts, but once the plant is dead or gone through, you may find the eggs or the cyst not on the ruts. Remember, the cyst is the female that will go into the rut, and it's the cyst is the body part that hangs out of the rut, where the eggs are at. Okay, that's the white thing that you saw in the rut. So once that rut dies, you got that cyst that's living in the soil, with that casing around it that can live there long term. So it doesn't need to be in the rut. It's probably go close to where the roots were at. That answer?
Yeah. How about in the wheat field the following year? Can I check that, or I should say?
Your likelihood of finding them is going to be less because your numbers are going down then. Because there is what's inside the cyst is protected and may last for years, but the eggs that are outside that cyst are going to be short-lived, probably within a year. So you see our egg numbers might be high, but the next year it drops hard and then it kind of levels off. Okay, so that's the purpose of rotating to another crop. It's because that next year we're going to take the egg numbers are going to come down, and it's going to start to level out because what's left is going to be inside that cyst protected. And those are the ones that 3, 4, 5 years later have a susceptible host.
I'd check the next time you have weeds on that ground and then check the roots in the fall.
Yep.
Take your soil sample.
Ideally, you do it when you have a new crop. But I would suspect you could do it later on, but your best bang for the buck is going to be checking when you have a new crop.
So how many does it take to really affect your yield? Like, if low numbers really do much?
I'm going to turn that question a little bit. Back to that slide, if you have them, manage them, because they will blow up that fast. They have kind of talked at 50 to 500, and you see something at maybe 5,000. But again, if you have 100 females out there, in June, that becomes becomes 10,000 in July, and 1,000,000 in August. And 1,000,000 you have a Christmas tree that's lit up with 10,000 lights. Okay. So if you have them, manage it.
Just like that one slide you had there, how they went on for 6 years at low levels and they went back to susceptible variety, those numbers just skyrocketed.
So I don't know if it's an issue of, well, my numbers are low, I'm not gonna worry about them, I'm gonna plant a non-resistant variety. It's if you found them, you need to start thinking about resistant varieties and rotation. Because 1 year they're just gonna go, okay? So it's not an issue of how many so much,